sure, sir, you're gonna win. And I say, wait a minute, I just won 6 months ago. The big lie, they call it. Those claims are unproven. And knowing what happened in the election is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. The county has refused to produce the network routers. We want the routers, Sonny. The county refused to produce the network routers. Wendy, we gotta get those routers, please. If you think about cancel, everything about cancel culture, they want cancel culture. But what they don't want to do is anything having to do with the 2020 election. We have no press. We have no voice. They almost got away with it. They may have gotten away with it. And I've got to tell you, I've got to say this. I've never said it before, but I've always thought it. I get along with Putin because that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The county has refused to produce the network routers.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Here we go. Hour 1. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We are streaming to you live on audio through the Truth Frequency Radio Network, which is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. And this is the voice of the revolution. We are also streaming to you live on video. Yes, live on Foxhole, on Twitch, on Facebook, on DLive, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Rumble and Rockfin. Yes, so it's hardly a live venue we are not live on right now, and free. Please sign up for my newsletter. It is free. It comes out every Wednesday, every Sunday, right after the program. It is free. That means it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is go to americafreeradio.com and click the sign up the newsletter. All you need is your name and email address. Boom. It doesn't cost you anything. I send it to you for nothing. All kinds of goodies in there and good information from the program, including a link in case you missed the broadcast and in case you want to share it with your friends. That's how we grow. All right, first story tonight, I call simply Mule. Yes, former San Luis, Arizona Mayor Guillermina Fuentes, a major local Democrat operative. She pleaded guilty this week to ballot harvesting. Yep. And this is pretty good because this is Mark Brnovich, the Arizona Attorney General. He is finally getting some results here. Fuentes, along with Alma Juarez, was indicted in December of 2020, right after the election, each on one felony count of ballot abuse, also known as ballot harvesting, where political operatives collected ballots from voters and turned them in on their behalf. Oh, but it gets worse. Okay. Juarez already pleaded guilty in March. Yeah, this week, Fuentes pleaded guilty as well. According to prosecutors, Fuentes used her status as a powerful local Democrat operative to run a ballot harvesting scheme. She collected ballots from voters in Arizona's 2020 primary election. Prosecutors accused Fuentes of collecting and filling out ballots from voters as part of this scheme. In other cases, prosecutors allege that Fuentes paid voters to let her collect their ballots. It doesn't get any worse than that, Earth Explorers. They also reported some details of the case. Prosecutors were apparently unable to prove the most serious charge, which caused them to drop 3 felony counts alleging that Fuentes filled out one voter's ballot and forged signatures on some of the 4 ballots she allegedly returned for people who were not family members. Forged signatures. This would have been important. What's important to me is the fact that Brnovich went after the forged signatures, because we know that these mules, once they collect the ballots, they have to turn them in to get paid. And they're getting paid $10, $20, $30 a piece for these ballots, depending on whether it's a primary or the actual election. And they have to prove that they turned them in. They got to show photographic proof. So they sort of take a picture or a video of it, or they send it in somehow. And, of course, there were surveillance cameras on some of the boxes. And so between that and the fact that we tracked their cell phones so that we actually put their location at that ballot box for enough moments to slip that ballot in. And, of course, it makes it even worse that those exact same cell phones were tracked to riots, to Antifa riots, where things were burned and broken and cars were turned over and people were hurt, items were stolen, looting went on. These are the same people, the same actors doing this kind of stuff. So it would have been very important to get Fuentes on forgery charges. Still, 1 felony counts pretty significant, especially for an elected official. Investigators wrote that it appeared Fuentes used her position, and this is really important. This is what makes the crime so severe. It's why, like the likes of Stacey Abrams and Gerald Nadler and these other individuals, it's why this is so landmark, because it's sort of like a boss at a manufacturing plant abusing or at least taking advantage of women who work for him. He's in a power of position. He's in a position of power. He can hire and fire. He can get them overtime. He can get them easier work. He can, give them favors in exchange for favors. And that's what makes sexual harassment in the workplace so devastating. Why these guys should be buried underneath the plant when they do this, or underneath the business when they do this. She is in a political position, not only of influence, but also of economic power over these people. And so this is how she got the people to give her, or others that work for her, their ballots to return to the polls. Fuentes and her co-defendant were seen with several mail-in envelopes outside a cultural center in San Luis on the day of the 2020 primary election. The ballots were taken inside and dropped in a ballot box. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. Although Fuentes was charged only with actions that appear on videotape and involve just a handful of ballots, investigators believe just the tip of the iceberg, just the comma in the sentence. They believe the effort went much, much further. Attorney General's office investigator, whose name was William Cluth, he wrote in one report that there was some evidence suggesting Fuentes actively canvassed San Luis neighborhoods. She went out and solicited and collected the ballots in person. In some cases, she paid cash for them. Yeah. Fuentes currently sits on the Gadsden Elementary School Board. It's an elected position, by the way. She's going to lose that job as a result of the guilty plea. She's facing 2 years in prison plus cash and the sentencing begins in 3 weeks. So, and they should throw the book at her. They should throw the book at her. 24 months, 29 days, 10,000, whatever the maximum is, because she's in a position. She's not just, a neighborhood, working in a homeless shelter. She's in a position of power. She was in a position of political influence. So in January 2020, San Antonio, Texas woman was charged with operating a massive ballot harvesting scheme that involved election fraud, illegal voting, unlawful assisting people voting by mail, unlawfully possessing an official ballot. And the woman in that case was caught on video claiming to be working with elected state and county officials in coercing voters and harvesting in an effort of harvesting ballots and voting on behalf of other people and running a cash for votes operation for the Democrat Party. In October 2020, the Denton County, Texas Sheriff's Office arrested 39-year-old, and I think you heard about this in the news. Her name is Zul Mirza Mohammed, for an alleged mail-in voter fraud operation. Mohammed, charged with 109 counts of voter fraud, was allegedly using a fraudulently obtained P.O. box to request and deliver a large quantity of absentee ballots that would then be filled out and turned in. The people to whom the ballots belonged never saw the ballots. These ballots were stolen. They may have even been counterfeit. Federal election data reveals that about 28.4 million. Yeah, that's about what Joe Biden collected. About 28.4 million mail-in ballots. They have gone missing in the last 4 election cycles dating back to 2012. And we've been trying to tell you on this program since 2008, we have not had a free and fair election. Now, they haven't actually needed to pull out all the stops to go after the presidency because John McCain very handily lost to Barack Obama in 2012. That was really no competition. But there were other races. There was Nancy Pelosi. There was Nadler. There was Schiff. These low-life, scumbag, lying sons of bitches kept getting reelected over and over again. And nobody voted for these assholes. Nobody voted for them. It didn't matter. They used ballot harvesting to get them elected over and over again. Nadler can barely get out of his own underwear, let alone get out to meet his constituents and shake hands and get votes. Nadler should have been kicked out of Congress a decade ago, right after he had his stomach stapled shut. According to Pew Research Center analysis, there are potential 24 million ineligible or inaccurate voter registration on state voter rolls. That's enough to swing any election. So what I was going to tell you about these ballot boxes, they call them ballot boxes. They try to legitimize it. It's like saying, hubcaps are wheels. Yes, they go in the middle of the tire, but there's a big difference between hubcaps and wheels. Ballot boxes should not exist. They exist at the precinct. You go to the precinct where there are ballot location watchers, voting location watchers of both parties, and you take your single ballot in and you slip it into a single slot. Okay, that's the way it's done. Or you mail in the ballot. You request the ballot in writing. It is sent to you. You fill it out. You sign it. A witness signs it. You put it back in the envelope, and you mail it back to the same precinct that sent it to you. They look at their records and say, yep, we sent this ballot to Brooks Agnew while he was in Texas working out of state, and here it is back again. We know this ballot. This has our registration number on it, and then it is counted. But ballot boxes do not exist. Ballot boxes are not to be sitting out on a sidewalk under an inoperative street light in the hood. And we don't have them. The only reason that they got out there is that Mark Zuckerberg paid $470 million to a ballot box company to build, paint, deliver, and place these boxes in the hood so that these ballot operations could go on. It's a coordinated effort. The Democrat Party went to Mark Zuckerberg and said, hey, we need to be able to get these ballots into the system. We can't take them to the precinct because our mules, our jackasses, they're packing bags of ballots, and that's illegal. We can't go to the precinct. We've got to be able to put these in the system somewhere else, off-site. So we need you to build us and place and buy for us and place for us Zucker boxes. That's what I call them. They're not ballot boxes. They're Zucker boxes. And there are thousands and thousands of these all over the country. They are illegal. They were never paid for with taxpayer dollars. They don't belong to the city. They don't belong to the county. They don't belong to the state. If you have a Zucker box in your neighborhood and you own a tow truck, you need to sling a cable around that thing and haul it to the damn scrapyard. If you don't own a tow truck, seal up that slot. I don't care how you do it. Weld it up. Take adhesive and a piece of steel and stick it over it. It says out of order. Take that box out of service. I don't care if you have to fill it with concrete. I don't care if you have to fill it with cat shit. You take that box out of service because that is illegal. That is illegal in every single state. It does not exist. It has never been purchased by a precinct. It isn't operated by a precinct. It doesn't belong to the precinct, and it is illegal. If there's a Zucker box in your neighborhood and you don't get rid of it by November, you're going to lose. That's my public service announcement. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. And you're going to keep repeating it to your friends. Hashtag Zuckerbox. Let's get it out there. Let's get those damn things off the road. Okay? 28.4 million mail-in ballots. What the hell, people? What the hell? All right. I need a drink after that. I hit the Perrier here. Yes, Wrecking Ball 1776 says, good evening, Patriots. Still sending mail-in ballots here in California. Never registered to vote with a mail ballot for midterms. Right on. Right on. Well, they're sending out the mail-in ballots. People receive them, sign them, fill them out, get a witness to sign it, seal it back up and mail it in. I suppose that's legal. And in the state of California, ballot harvesting is actually legal, but it must be done under certain guidelines. You don't just go into a nursing home with 1,200 invalids and gather up their ballots and fill them out for them in the lobby and take them out of the building. That's illegal, even in the state of California. Hate to tell you. Hate to tell you. That's right. There you go, old dog. Hashtag destroy Zucker boxes. I like it. Let's make it go viral. Thank you, Miss Vicky. She says, I don't blame you, Brooks. I feel the same way. Yeah. Well, this is how we do something about it. Because we are the voice of the revolution. Only our revolution is going to win. We're the ones that start this revolution, and we're the ones that are going to finish this revolution. And this revolution consists of destroying the Zucker boxes and informing people who the criminals are so that you know who not to vote for. Okay? There is no reason on God's green earth that AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Ariana Presley and Gerald Nadler and Nancy Pelosi, there's no reason on God's green earth that these human beings should be receiving a federal check in January of 2023. It just shouldn't happen. Okay? No reason whatsoever except for criminal activity. We're going to expose it, and we're going to demand justice. That is our revolution. It is a revolution of justice. Okay. Of course, we have been telling you since, I guess, the second week of February, before Operation Z actually began, that this wasn't a war, that this Operation Z was conducted to stop a war. I told you that Russian spies in Ukraine discovered that the Azov Battalion was planning to invade, after they'd also conquered Donbass and shelled the crap out of ethnic Russians for 8 years, by the way, that they were getting ready to invade Crimea on behalf of the Pan-European Army, because the Pan-European Army couldn't exactly do it because, it would kind of look like an invasion, by the Pan-European Army, and that would have been retaliated against by the Russians and maybe even by the U.S., because it would have violated, Clause 5, Article 5 of the treaty, which is you can't pick a fight. Okay, you can't go pick a fight and then ask for the other nations to defend you when the guy takes a swing back at you. No. That's a violation of Article 5. So they couldn't actually invade Crimea, but they could hire the Azov Battalion to do it. And that's exactly what they did. So once the Russian spies discovered that this invasion was going to take place, and they found out, long around Christmas time, the Russians began moving men and equipment to the border. And they parked it in nice, neat rows in the snow. You could see it from satellite. They wanted you to see it from satellite. That was the whole idea. And what it was doing is telling the world, this invasion's getting ready to happen, and we are going to stop it. In fact, Putin several times, I think it was several times a month, came out and he said, you stop your plans. You don't encroach on Russian property, because if you do, we will throw you back. And it's not going to be pretty. We don't want this conflict. Please stop advancing on us. They didn't stop. March 23rd, they were supposed to cross the border into Crimea, slaughter those people, and seize the incredibly valuable oil and gas fields off the coast of Crimea, right there on the coast. It was partially developed by Exxon and Shell, but it had a long way to go, and all those assets were going to be nationalized anyway. So they kind of pulled out. But the point is, it could all be developed. It could all be developed with capital injection. It could be developed. And it would have made possible a pipeline across the Black Sea, not only to the EU, but also to Turkey if they needed it over there. It would have been a great boon. And, of course, the Azov Battalion wanted it for themselves. So nobody listened. Nobody listened to this program. Nobody listened to Putin saying, back off, or you're going to get it. We're going to not be merciful on this. And so February 24th, they crossed the border and they formed the convoy, the 40-kilometer long convoy aimed right at Kiev. Everybody saw it. Nobody could miss it. Anybody with a satellite that went around the earth once every week would have seen it, because it was stuck. It stalled. There were, cheeseburgers going up and down the convoy, but it was like a caravan stuck in quicksand. It wasn't going anywhere. And it wasn't being shelled. It wasn't being rocketed. It wasn't being attacked, not flanked. It wasn't split in two. What it did, it scared the hell out of Zelensky, Volodymyr, the dancing boy, and his little production crew that's posing as the president of Ukraine. And I use that word on purpose, posing in high heels as the president of Ukraine. They panicked. They said, all those reinforcements that we have set up to back up the Azov Battalion once they march into Crimea, and so we could seize and occupy those lands, we've got to pull those back. We've got to pull those back to protect Kiev. So they did. They moved the tanks. They moved the launchers and the howitzers and the troops. They moved them back. Come back, come back. We have to protect Kiev. Look at this 40-kilometer-long convoy aimed at us. We're not prepared for this. Well, as soon as the last chuck wagon made it across the bridge on the way to Kiev, boom, Putin blew the bridges, blew the railroad trestles, blew the fuel supplies, blew the depots that contained all the weapons that were supposed to reinforce the Azovs in Donbass, cutting off the battalions in Donbass. And then Putin commenced to very carefully, very methodically, and now it's coming out to be exactly as we said, that they didn't go in with wholesale force, just razing neighborhoods. They went in building by building, basement by basement, and got those Azovs out and chased them into the bowels of the tunnels under Azovstal steel plant. And once they did that, they were able to pound the holy stuffings out of them, and they recently surrendered. Now, all those guys are in a prisoner of war camp up near Moscow. Some of them are being sent home to be with their families, and some of them that are covered with all the Nazi tattoos and everything, they're going somewhere else. And all of the generals from America and Canada and France, all those officers that were in there helping the Azov battalion, the Nazis, they are in a prisoner of war camp. And it is going to cost them dearly to get those officers back. Yes, American generals and Canadian and French. Oh, yeah, they're there. CIA special. CIA special. They're all in a prisoner of war camp now. And Donbass is free, plus quite a few miles on into Kiev. In essence, the war is over. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to give you my update. It's going to scare the hell out of you, but it's good. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. If the commercials on TFR are playing tonight, I believe they are. So we should hear it any second now. Any second.
Somebody should tell us right at the start of our lives that we're dying. And we might live life to the limit. Every minute of every day. Whatever you want to do it now. There are only so many tomorrows. I say to you that if you're driven by anything other than your love and your spirit, your desire to grow and expand, if you're driven by your need to please others, if you're driven by your fear, if you're driven by your past, it's time to free yourself. And the way to do it is decide consciously what you want your life to be about.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. if there's to achieve, you can achieve any freaking thing you want as long as you know what the goal is. That's why goal posters or goal boards or even just telling someone what your goals are, writing them down is so important, because once you can identify your goal, it makes it so much easier to work towards it. And that's something that I think our children are not being taught in the school system right now, is how to set a proper goal. Like, hey, what do you want to achieve? Well, the teacher gave me these things I want to achieve. Okay, well, what's that going to do for you? Well, I don't know. The teacher said I had to do it. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't teach them the logical thought process or the creative thinking process to develop a goal and then reverse engineer what they need to do to accomplish that goal. And we need more of that true goal setting in our society. Otherwise, we just have a bunch of sheep who have no idea what they're doing. They're just bumbling around. Don't be a sheep, be a goat. They're more creative and adventurous anyways. Be an ornery goat.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Thanks, everybody in the chat room. Good activity there. Appreciate that. Had to kick somebody out for being naked in the chat room. We can't have that. I also wanted to give a shout out to my friends at Foxhole. It's kind of a separate chat. I have to swing over there and say hello to them. Sean Joe's there. Plant 22 is there. And Keep True is there. Thank you so much for showing up in Foxhole. I love the platform. We love Pilled. He does a fantastic job putting this platform together. Lots of my associates are there, and my colleagues are there. Salty Crackers there, and Red Pill 78, and the list goes on and on and on. They do a fantastic job bringing the best of the best together to a warm, comfortable place, Foxhole. So we appreciate the great, great work that they do there. Let's see. Couple more things in the chat. Thanks for the acknowledgement of getting your ivermectin. That is very good. We appreciate you giving that affirmation. And, of course, our distribution of that, our facilitation of the distribution of that is way down from where it was in December and January because the marketing campaign has trailed off. But, you know, the election is roughly 75 days away. I don't mean voting day. I mean the election actually begins. Come Labor Day, that's when the election really begins. It doesn't really matter what happens between now and then, unless your name gets taken off the ballot, or put on the ballot for that matter. The issue is that the global syndicate is losing. They're losing the narrative. They're losing the momentum, and they're losing the space. And that's the most important thing in news media, is the space. You have to hold space for your agenda, and they're not able to do it because they've lost the mainstream media, which is us. We're the mainstream media. The mainstream of America is with us. Me and my colleagues all together collectively make a decentralized, very important word, decentralized mainstream media. It's the way it's been for 300 years. Yes, 300 years in this country. It has been a decentralized mainstream media. That's us. We are America Free Radio. There's X22 Report. There's, Dark Journalists. There's all these great guys that do a fantastic job and have built huge audiences, loyal listeners. We are the mainstream media. Now, the ones that you see with the news actors that are getting paid $3, $4, $5, $15 million a year to stand there and stare at a camera, or sit there with makeup on and try to look intelligent. That's the fake stream news. That is the fake stream news. Their job is to sell CIA propaganda. I could go into the details. I don't have time to do it. Just take my word for it. That's the CIA propaganda. And the issue is that they have lost the space. They don't have the listeners. We have more listeners here on this program than CNN. Go figure. Go figure. The people that supposedly listen to CNN, they're all NPCs and bots. That's a non-player character. NPCs and bots have no influence on reality. They don't really exist. Our listeners exist. Our listeners spend money. Our listeners go vote. Our listeners hold down jobs and raise kids and obey the law. Our listeners are valuable. So the difference is, or should I say, the reason I bring this up is because they want that space back. They want that space back. And when you start connecting the dots in this business enough times, you begin to see patterns. And me, being a professional statistician, we look for patterns. We have mathematical ways of revealing patterns in things. When we see, Robbie Mook say on the stand in the Sussman trial, yeah, Hillary Clinton's the one that ordered all this. She approved all this. She got all this together. She's the one that kicked all this off. She's really the kingpin behind all this. Not those words exactly, but that is pretty much what he said. All of us, whether we were on the air or off the air, we had to catch our breath because we knew what it meant. Once Hillary Clinton's name was mentioned, we knew kids were going to die. We know their modus. We know what they do. They send shooters into schools and they begin killing kids. That's the way they work. That's the connection. And it almost makes you want to say, don't mention her name. Don't ever mention her name on the news. Don't mention her. Don't get bad press to her. Because we can't afford the kids. It's almost that bad. And so that's what we've been getting, for the last 3 weeks. We have schools all over the country, and I don't mean every school, but I mean not in a single location. Buffalo and Texas and Pennsylvania and California, they're getting smashed with these programmed operatives who have been hypnotized, drugged, armed, funded, and sent on a mission to die. It's their only way out in their brains. The way they've messed with their brains, it's their only way out is to go in and shoot until you're shot. I hate it. I hate this evil. If God can hate anything, he hates this evil. So this is what we're seeing. Yeah. Rose Belitza says, is it Rose Belitza? I like that. That's pretty cool. I've never seen that before. She says, we knew what it meant. Yeah. And I don't want to go into the mental triggers that they use, but usually these people have, I wouldn't say a screw loose, they have a disconnection in their brain. Either they're bipolar or they have, serotonin uptake issues, but they go in for professional help. They see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, usually through the school system. They identify these kids, and they get sent into the system, and what do? They put the headphones on, the flashing lights, the psychotropic drugs, 2, 3, 4 sessions, and they're in. They're trained. They know what their trigger words are. And somebody bought this kid, down in Texas, some really expensive guns. I mean, an AR-15 is about $600. These guns were about $2,500 a piece. They were top of the line, expensive stuff with all the options. Yeah, big stuff. And the reason is, as I read you chapter 12 out of Charm of Favor about Lim Shun having the discussion with Bill Clinton, you remember that? I don't want to read it again tonight. Don't make me do that. Just go back and listen to the archive. The discussion was all about Lim Shun telling Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton was saying, but look, there's just no way you're going to get rid of these guns. That's just not the way Americans are built. But Lim Shun was saying, look, we have to make people embarrassed about the gun. You own an AR-15? You monster. See, you have to make people have a stigma about the gun. I don't want to take this gun down to the gun range and shoot it. Somebody might see me. That was the whole idea behind Lim Shun's conversation with Bill Clinton. And you remember I said when I was reading that chapter, because this chapter 12 was written somewhere in late September of that year of 2018. Lo and behold, in October of 2018, Las Vegas happens. Almost word for word, exactly the way Lim Shun described it. I told you, the book just streamed to me. I don't know how it happened. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe I am a seer. I don't know. But as I was writing the book, it just came to me. And I put it in there. And the point is that these individuals are cocked and loaded. They're cocked and they're loaded. And when the time comes, those trigger words are sent to them and they go into action. They lock and load and they go do their duty and they die. Or sometimes they go to prison. And eventually, maybe, they'll crack them open. But I doubt it. This kind of MK Ultra kind of training, they're good at it. They're very good at it. And it's scary because these assassins are trained from ordinary Americans that have never done anything wrong. No traffic tickets, maybe some scuffles and stuff like that, but, no priors. So you send a target, a judge or a lawyer or a witness or a politician or a president, you send them into a situation where you have some of these assassins in the crowd. And all that has to happen is the trigger word is leaked. At that moment, those people go into action. And this person who'd never done nothing to nobody, all of a sudden turns into a weapon and will accomplish their mission or die doing it. You don't get soldiers better than that. They don't need any body armor. They don't need any helmets. They don't need any backup. They just pupils dilate and off they go. It's good law enforcement that was able to apprehend them instead of kill them in some cases, but in most cases, they usually take the dirt nap. And greetings to you up here on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Good to see you up there as well. All right, let's talk about this because following on the heels of Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, somebody wrote a speech for him. Did you hear this speech? I have a list of the reason there's blanks here is because there's a lot of profanity that goes in between those words, and I can't let it out. Yes, AB, that's right. He says the CIA has been doing this for a long time. We are only waking up from the sleep. Well, there were guys. I mean, there was Alex Jones, and there were others that tried to alert us that these programs were ongoing, who it was that they were doing sexual service to as part of this MK Ultra break your soul kind of training. I don't think they do that much of that anymore. I think they're mostly training weapons so that they can get in on a school trip somewhere and then they've pulled the trigger and these people are already inside the fence and they can do mayhem. Yeah, and that's a good question. Carib67 says, so why was this kid outfitted with such expensive weapons to cause more people to question the narrative? Actually, they were going after the weapon, and that's why it kind of dovetails into Biden's speech on gun control. That's why he's going after the high-capacity magazines and the 9mm and the 223. Well, he's not even going after that anymore. He's just going after the AR-15, and because he calls it a weapon of war, which is a bald-faced lie. It isn't. The M16 is a weapon of war, but I guarantee you there is no soldier anywhere on God's green earth that has an AR-15 in their hands. No. Citizens maybe, but not soldiers. Guaranteed it. Been there. Shot 'em. Myself. Following on the heels of Virtual Joe's announcement that it's going to send longer-range rocket systems to Ukraine, and I should probably take that S off there because the reality is it's a rocket system. It is one launcher. One launcher. Not a game changer, a face saver. Not a game changer, a face saver. But it still elicited a response from the Kremlin. The Kremlin issued a veiled threat that if its territory, meaning Russia, if its territory is hit by one of these rockets that Virtual Joe is sending over there to this garage band called the Zelensky Band, it's going to strike back. And this is the important part. Listen closely. Not going to strike back at Kiev. He's going to strike back directly at the West. Wait a minute. What's the West? The West is London. The West is Brussels. The West is Washington, D.C., New York, the Pentagon. That's the West, Earth Explorers. Strike back directly at the West. Quote, one of President Putin's closest allies has warned that Moscow could target Western cities if Ukraine uses rocket systems supplied by the United States to carry out strikes on Russian territory. Close quote, and that's the UK Times. This is a dire warning, Earth Explorers, very dire. This is how the war gets escalated, if it does. If it does. And it was given by somebody very high up, very close to Putin, an ally, a former president. His name is Dmitry Medvedev. Dmitry Medvedev. He currently serves as the Russian Security Council deputy chairman. He's experienced, he's eloquent, he's very intelligent, and he speaks with authority. He says, if, God forbid, these weapons are used against Russian territory, then our armed forces will have no other choice but to strike decision-making centers. Close quote. Now, we're not talking about a military base. We're not talking about a weapons depot. We're not talking about a rail yard. Decision-making centers. Where are decisions made? Oh, Kiev, yeah. I think that's kind of long overdue. They should have toasted the Zelensky Band a while back just to send a message. But decisions are made in London. Decisions are made in Brussels. Decisions are made in Geneva. Decisions are made at Davos. Decisions are made at Bilderberg. Ooh, wait, Bilderberg's happening this week. How about that? Decisions are made in Washington, D.C. Of course, if patterns hold true, Virtual Joe will spend less time in the White House than any president in history. Yep. I don't think he's going to serve 2 terms, so he's not going to get close to President Bush Jr. But in one term, he has definitely beat the record of presidents not in the White House. That's Virtual Joe. He's somewhere else. Oh, he's making videos. He's making statements, but he's not in the White House. Now, what Medvedev is suggesting, it marks a severe escalation, not of the war, but of the rhetoric. Remember I was talking to you about the space? If you can maintain this space with your thought, your theme, you own it, and nothing else can get in. This is what the Clintons learned so well in their career in Arkansas. You remember when the space was being filled with the Bill Clinton impeachment. Now, it was kind of bogus bullshit. I mean, it wasn't about selling weapons to China for money. It wasn't about letting secrets being stolen from Los Alamos, which, by the way, I have the inside track on that. It absolutely, definitely was happening for money. It wasn't about that. That would have been a great impeachment. No, it was about sleeping with an intern in the Oval Office and then lying about it. If you're going to sleep with the girl, at least say, yeah, I slept with her. She's hot. What's up with that? Let's move on. I got work to do. They could have done nothing to him. They could have slapped him a little bit. They could have maybe, made life rough for him in the press, but they wouldn't have impeached him for it. You could screw all the interns you want. It's been happening from Kennedy, Jefferson, you name it. You name it. The help has been screwed on a regular basis by the president. But you can't lie about it. If you're asked about it, you gotta say, yeah, I did. What can I say? Yeah, you can't lie about it. That's what he did. The space was filled with that, and they needed to get that out. So you remember what Hillary did. She took a photograph, and she lied about the photograph to the press, and she caused the Kosovo War, which lasted about, 75, 80 days, something like that. They blew the shit out of the place, got Slobodan Milosevic arrested, and killed him in prison. But was it necessary? No, it wasn't necessary. They were dealing with the Muslim threat that was trying to invade their country. But it changed the space, you see. They replaced the Clinton space with the Kosovo space. So that's why this is very important, because this space has been filled by the Russian leadership. That is not what Putin wants. That's not what the global syndicate wants. It needs to be understood that the final decision-making centers in this case, unfortunately, are not located in the territory of Kiev. And that suggests Western capitals, Western areas where decisions are being made. That Pentagon makes a nice target. I don't know what they have defending it, but they're not making friends around the world. Langley, another decision-making center, right? And believe me, if Russia has shown anything in the last 75, 80 days, it is that they can drop a missile or a rocket or a grenade down the poop chute of any place they want, any time they want. Any place they want, any time they want, and nothing can stop them. Dmitry Medvedev, now Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman, sent the warning after America agreed to provide Ukraine with advanced rocket systems that can strike with precision at long-range Russian targets. Previously, Russia had threatened to hit decision-making centers, but only within Ukraine. And they haven't yet, but they certainly can. They certainly can. These cities have been targeted on occasion, but rarely throughout this military operation have they been hit. The U.S. confirmed this past week that Ukraine could receive the M142 high-mobility artillery rocket system, which is a medium-range capability of striking targets some 50 miles away. It's an advanced rocket system, okay? It is formidable. I will say formidable with a small f, because it's only medium range. It's not hypersonic. Those rockets can be shot out of the sky with a Patriot or a S-400 or S-300 anti-missile systems. They can be, but S-300s and 400s are not everywhere. You don't have them around every refinery. You don't have them around every bridge. You don't have them around every, port city. You don't have them around everything except for the decision-making centers. They might be able to guard those. But the fact that Virtual Joe's only sending one, I don't know what you get for $40 billion, but I would suspect you probably get more than one. The issue is that this is a face-saving move by the Biden administration, by Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. They know the war's over. They know the Russians have won. They don't want to send a missile in there that could get into the wrong hands, a rocket system that could get in the wrong hands, because this is a formidable machine. And a lot of this stuff, including the Stingers and the harpoon, not the harpoons, but the javelins, and some of the other heavy weapons like 20 millimeter guns, they didn't make it to the Azovs. They either got destroyed by the Russians, and by the way, that was the explosion that you saw today. The one that was hit was actually a delivery of U.S. weapons. The Russians know exactly where it's landing. They know what dock 19, dock 31, whatever, and they just blow it up. But they don't get everything. Some of the stuff never makes it to Ukraine. Some of the stuff doesn't make it to Ukraine. It gets transferred. It gets sold. It gets smuggled. And the scary thing is that 1,400 Stinger missiles were sent, and like 5 helicopters were shot down. And you're going, what the hell? We sent 1,400 Stinger missiles. Only 5 helicopters get shot down? Where are the other 1,395 Stinger missiles? And that's the $40 billion question, Earth Explorers. We don't know. Those missiles, those missile systems, those shoulder-fired man-pads, which are called a Stinger missile, it can take down, a commercial jet at 20,000 feet. Pretty easily, by the way, because they move big and slow. They're everywhere. They're being traded on the black market as we speak. You could see one at LaGuardia. You could see one at Miami. You could see one at Dallas. All it takes is one Stinger to take down a passenger jet with 273 passengers on it. And our day is screwed here in this country. Our day is screwed. And who did it? Who did it? Virtual Joe. I told you this is a proxy war using Russia against you. The war is against you, not Russia. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go away. Any second now. That was kind of melodramatic, wasn't it? Loosen up a little bit. We'll be back top of the hour, second hour, starting right after this.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
They're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. There's the owners of Truth Frequency Radio. They believe they're communicating with entities they call them clockwork elves. I'm not going to get into what they're interfacing with. They believe they're in contact with off-world groups. Chris Keogh, Truth Frequency Radio, he takes it, you see the elves, little green hats.
We're in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. We're in trouble. The Clockwork Elves, all of it, I shouldn't even get into it. There's a reason they're all whacked out of their minds. They're taking DMT. And the point is that their whole science is way ahead, and we don't even know what they've got. They're in power because they're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Chris Geo took the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Chris Geo took the DMT. You think they're all a bunch of old men? They're in power because they were into this stuff 70 years ago. The DMT. They were jacking DMT 70 years ago. They were injecting it. They're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Chris Geo took the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Truth Frequency Radio took the DMT. I shouldn't even get into it.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Here we go, hour 2. Hang with us. By the way, I just wanted to reiterate how serious this is of sending these mid-range rocket systems to Ukraine. The war is lost. The war is over. Ukraine is going to be federalized here pretty soon. It's going to be part of the negotiations. But I mean by that is that Ukraine is going to be divided up into states. It's not going to be one big territory controlled by one dancing little teddy bear. It's going to be divided into states, and each one is going to have a governor, and those governors are going to have significant power and over the policies that take place in there. And now, the other thing you need to understand is that Ukrainians as a society, not as a people, not as a genetic code, but as a society, are not really welcome in the EU. A lot of the Ukrainians that went to Poland, escaping the Azov shelling and the sniping and everything that was going on there, the Poles want them to leave. They're being kicked out of apartments. They're being kicked out of hotels because they're, as a society, they're not welcome. They don't keep the place neat and clean. I don't know why. It's just part of their culture. So, saying that you could make a separate state out of the Donbass is easier said than done, because it's going to take a couple of generations of cultural education, because they've been the line worker class of people for a long time, for 50, 60 years. They have made space systems, they made weapon systems, they made railroads, and they made machines. They're just not a people that keep a place nice and neat and clean. Some of the places that I have seen from my friends that have sent me video, places that have never been bombed, never been shot, no bullet holes in anything, no bombs have gone off anywhere. The roads are, in bad repair. They look like our roads if they have not been maintained for 30 years. In your own neighborhood, they come, they pour new asphalt, they put curbs and gutters and street lights in. But if they don't do anything for 30 years, it looks kind of run down, right? There are cracks and weeds, and you know what I'm talking about, right? This is Ukraine. It's not kept up like it should be. So it is going to be difficult to make these into federative states, but that is going to be, you'll see in the next few weeks, part of the negotiation. The West doesn't want that. They don't want that to be federated. They have been using it as a clearinghouse for drug cash, human trafficking cash, and frankly, stolen taxpayer money. And we're not talking a small amount here. We're talking about maybe $1 trillion of stolen money. Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of stolen money from all around the world has been laundered through Ukraine. You know, when these executives and these politicians, they fly to Ukraine, and you've seen a lot of them lately, haven't you? They fly their jet there. They take their diplomatic bags, which could be a big ass canvas duffel bag. When they get there, they dump that bag out. Everything they could get at Macy's, they just dump it out on the floor. All I need is 2 changes of clothes and enough to make sure that I smell good when I leave and I'm shaven. And then they stuff those bags with cash. They stuff them with as much money as they can get in there. Why? Because they can go right back through customs, out of the country and back into our country without those ever being searched. That's what they do. That's why you're seeing the American personalities and British and French and German. That's why you're seeing them in Ukraine, because they arrive, they shake hands, they do whatever sexual things they're going to do there, and then they stuff their bags with cash. And then they leave. And they're rich. They're rich. That's how they buy their apartment buildings and shopping centers, right? That's how they launder the money. That's what Joe Biden's been doing for a long, long time. Why do you think Obama picked him as his vice president? Because he was sharp as a rat turd on both ends? Hell no. It's because he had the cash operation in Ukraine. He had set it up long before Obama got on the scene. Joe Biden was assigned to Barack Obama because he had access to the dark money. Now you know. Now you know. So the West has been increasingly willing to give the Ukraine these longer range weaponry. They don't really know what to do with it. And by the way, this includes the M777 howitzers. These are 150 millimeter, which is about 6 inches across. It's a pretty good size round, but it's dumb. You just tilt the gun and fire, and then your spotter says, "Oh, back it up 40 yards." And then you tilt the gun and fire. It's a stupid weapon. It's just made to intimidate. U.S. intelligence is also warned about growing risks, particularly when given a mismatch between Russian President Vladimir Putin's apparent ambitions and the performance of his military. Now, this is, of course, the narrative of the fake stream news, that this is all about Putin's zealous insanity that he wants to control the world. No, he doesn't. He never did. He doesn't even control Russia. What he did with Russia when it broke away from the Soviet Union, what he did with Russia is he freed Russia. Let me put it another way. He freed the Russians. He freed the Russians. They could then do business and make money. And that's why he's been there for 20 plus years. He freed the Russians. He doesn't want to own the territory in Ukraine. He isn't taking territory. He isn't erecting Russian flags. He's assisting the DPR, the Donbass Republic, the People's Republic. That's who he's assisting. He's preventing the Azov Battalion, which are the Nazis, from invading Crimea and killing innocent civilians. That's what he's doing. He's not going to hold Ukraine. Ukraine's not going to be occupied by Russian forces. He's going to free the Ukrainians. That's what it's all about. And that's the real narrative. But there's a warning in this, because that changes the space. It changes the space. And Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals have controlled that space since the late 60s, and they want to keep controlling it. They don't want to give up this cash machine. They don't have enough. They never have enough. Have you ever known the Clintons to have enough? Have you ever known the Obamas to have enough? No. They always want more. They always want more. This $40 billion that just got sent to Ukraine is the biggest freaking cash cow, and people see those chips on the table, and they're not going to let it go. They're not going to let it go. They want that money. They want it so bad they'll kill for it. And Medvedev warned that because of that greed, because of that lust for power in the West, the world is getting closer and closer to nuclear war. He said, and this is very profound when leaders, real leaders, speak like this. He says, the horsemen of the apocalypse are already on their way, and all hope now is with Lord God the Almighty. Let that sink in. Russian state TV previously claimed the war in Ukraine is a rehearsal for a larger fight with NATO. And I would take that one step further and say this fight is not with NATO, because NATO doesn't exist. NATO is a game. We are talking about the Pan-European Army. That's not an official name. It's my name, but by God, it's real. The Pan-European Army is the enemy of the world right now. Why? Because they're being aggressive towards seizing oil and gas resources that belong to somebody else. They don't want to pay for it anymore. They want to own it. Ukraine and the Western allies are at odds with this force. And this force, which is Operation Z, is a special military operation to denazify Ukraine. I think they've done a pretty good job in Donbass, but there are more. And they're in hiding. They're very well funded, and they're very powerful. Not just politically, but spiritually very powerful. Dark spirits. Speaking of dark spirits, discreetly, under the radar, the 68th Bilderberg meeting is happening this week. Of course, this is just a docile, diverse group of political leaders and experts, having a chat and having a high-dollar buffet and a little bit of world-class wine, right? That's all. Nothing to see here, really. Still, one cannot but notice the choice of venue speaks a lot. There's a place that was burned to the ground, the Library of Alexandria. In the year heralding the explosion of a much-awaited NATO versus Russia proxy war, discussing its myriad ramifications does suit the capital of the Empire of Lies, much more than Davos a few weeks ago, where one Henry Kissinger sent them into a frenzy by advancing the necessity of a toxic compromise called, oh my God, diplomacy. No! By the way, I have a short list here of the 2022 Bilderberg participants. You can take a look at this. James Baker. You remember James Baker? He was just mentioned in this Sussman case. He is the consigliere extraordinaire. He's now a mere director of the Office of Net Assessment at the Pentagon. He is a crime attorney of a level that has not been seen in a long, long time. Jose Manuel Barroso, former head of the European Commission, later the recipient of a golden parachute in the form of a chairman of Goldman Sachs International. Yeah, this is the blood money. Albert Bourla, you know who he is, right? From Pfizer. Oh, they made a lot of money. All their product got pre-purchased by the federal government. William Burns, you know who that is, right? No? CIA director. Oh, yeah. Kurt Campbell, the guy who invented the, Obama-Hillary pivot to Asia, now White House coordinator for Indo-Pacific. Doesn't get any darker than that. This is the epicenter of human trafficking and organ harvesting on Earth. Doesn't get more wicked than that. Mark Carney, former Bank of England, one of the designers of the Great Reset. You've heard that word, haven't you? Now vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management. When we talk about asset management, we're really talking about avoiding taxes. We're really talking about a shell game. That's what asset management is. It's a shell game to prevent assets from being sued, from being attached, from being taxed. That's basically what asset management is. But the key word here for Mark Carney is the Great Reset. Because some of you have been duped into this Great Reset thing. I have friends. I have dear friends in California who are all over this Great Reset thing. They linked it with something called GESARA and NESARA. Wrong-o, baby. Not the same. GESARA and NESARA are not the Great Reset. You got fooled. The Great Reset is designed by this guy, Mark Carney. It is a tool of Klaus Schwab. It is designed to take all the money, all of it, everything you worked for your entire life and saved, and steal it, and then redistribute it. Your days of either aspiring to or living in a single-family home are over if Mark Carney has his way. Of course, Henry Kissinger, the establishment's voice of war. Charles Michel, or Mihal, he is the president of the European Council. Minton Beddoes, he's the editor-in-chief of The Economist, which will duly relay all major Bilderberg directives in the magazine's upcoming cover stories. He's part of the global media empire. David Petraeus, you remember him, don't you? Certified loser of endless surges and chairman of KKR Global Institute. You remember David Petraeus, don't you? Court-martialed for sharing his calendar with his main squeeze. Actually, I thought she was pretty hot myself. Mark Rutte, who is the hawkish prime minister of the Netherlands. This is very old money, very scary money, going all the way back to the 8th century. Jens Stoltenberg, he's the NATO top parrot. He's the guy that talks about, what NATO is going to do and what they're not going to do. It's really the pan-European army. He loves the stars. He's the Secretary General of it. And, of course, we can't leave out the scumbag, the backroom, smoky room scumbag, horror coordinating Jake Sullivan. Yep, straight from Hillary Clinton's rooms of doom, the director of the National Security Council. That is Jake Sullivan. Yeah, same guy. Same Jake Sullivan. Not the same name. He's the same guy. The ideological and geopolitical affiliations of these members of the diverse group need no further elaboration. It gets way sexier when we see what they're going to be discussing. Among the issues, we find NATO challenges, Indo-Pacific realignment, which basically means China taking over Taiwan, continuity of government and economy, which is basically stopping the Trump administration from keeping the Constitution alive and well in the United States of America. That's what that is. And conspirationists, a continuity in case of nuclear war, which is the side game. It has nothing to do with that. It means we don't want the government to stay together. We're trying to rip the government apart, and we don't want this military operation that President Donald Trump put into motion in December of 2020. We don't want that. We know that it's out there. We know that it's working because we can see the money being spent. We can see the assets being moved around. We can see the orders being disobeyed. Yes, orders that come from the commander-in-chief. I'm sorry, we can't do that. We're busy doing this. I'm sorry, that violates this prior executive order. You're going to have to go to the Supreme Court and get it overturned. See, that's not so easy. Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals have not been able to order the U.S. military around like Obama did. You know, Obama, every morning before he opened his soft-boiled egg, would look at the kill list, and he would pick who was going to be droned that day. Before he even had breakfast, people were dying at his order. It's not that way with Joe Biden, because the military isn't under his control, not all of it. So as Bilderberg follows, Chatham House rules, mere mortals, they won't have a clue of what they are actually proposing or approving, because there's no spies. There's nobody wearing a wire. There's nobody recording anything. All this is done in secret. And you remember what Kennedy said about secret organizations. This is the one he's talking about. And none of the participants are going to be allowed to talk about it with anybody. That's part of the oath and the covenant. That's why they do the blood oath. That's why they went to Epstein Island. That's why the films were taken and the pictures were taken and the samples were taken and all of the records are kept. That's why they don't come out in court, because if they do, they lose their leverage over these people, because these people are all about their reputation. If it's let out that they were screwing 9-year-olds on Epstein's Island, their career is over. You understand me? It's over. In anybody's book, nobody comes back from that. That's how the Bilderbergs control everybody there. That's why nobody talks about what's being said. These are the masters of the universe. All right, let's talk about what the Chinese are saying. Secretary of State Little Blinken, Sullivan's sidekick in the ongoing crash test dummy administration's Dumb and Dumber remake, has recently claimed that China supports Russia on Ukraine instead of remaining neutral. Well, no shit. What really matters here is that Little Blinken is implying that Beijing wants to destabilize Asia Pacific, which is absolute absurdity. They don't want to destabilize it. They want to own it. They want to own it. That's the master narrative that must pave the way for the U.S. to muscle up its Indo-Pacific concoction. And that's the briefing Sullivan and Kurt Campbell will be delivering to the diverse group. Davos, with its new self-billed mantra, the Great Narrative, completely excluded Russia, not invited. Bilderberg is mostly about containment of China, which, after all, is the number one existential threat to the empire of lies and its sidekicks. And it's getting harder to control because of Evergrande. You know, the bond company Evergrande is now officially, after a year of, proposing different kinds of solutions to it, is now officially in default, which means it's pretty much going to be delisted. It means that anybody holding on to Evergrande bonds is out of their money. They're out of their money and out of their mind. And they're mad. Oh, they're mad about it. Very mad about it. But it puts China in a very bad position. I should re-clarify. It puts the CCP in a very bad position because it means liquidators are going to come in and start taking the assets that back those bonds. And, Fitz and, others that rate this stuff, they will give up the title. And the CCP is not going to allow that to happen. They're going to fight over it. I mean, fight over it with guns. And that's very destabilizing. Let's see. Let's listen to what Chinese intelligentsia is saying about this new, Masters of the Universe meeting that's taking place this week. We'll start with Justin Lin Yifu. He's the former chief economist of the World Bank and now dean of the Institute of New Structural Economics at Peking University, which I think is right next to the Department of Paper Towels. And Sheng Songcheng, who is the former head of the Financial Survey and Statistics Department at the Bank of China, also next to the Department of Paper Towels. These guys advance that if China achieves dynamic zero infection on COVID-19 by about now, about the 1st of June was the goal, they're going to end the Shanghai lockdown, as though that was really what the whole lockdown was about anyway. I've been to Shanghai several times. It is an enormous city. You could fly over it with a jet for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. It's enormous. 30 million people, 4 millennia, 4,000 years of population. It's the most incredible city you ever saw. It goes from the docks, the worst place on earth, like out of the worst science fiction movie you ever saw, to the most advanced electric trains that go 315 kilometers an hour, beautiful train stations, immaculate. I stayed in. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Buy this car, you'll get girls. Buy this bra, you'll get guys. And we're seeing it so much that we start believing these lies, but the truth is, the makeup they're selling to make you feel prettier is the same makeup you buy to stop feeling shittier about this lie they keep telling you that you are not enough. And what about the movies we watch, all the shows on TV? The more I watch, the more I see I need you to complete me. And yes, love is the answer, love is the key, but if you can't love yourself, how could you ever love me? And loving yourself, what does that even mean? Like massages and selfies and that sort of thing? Because the more I think about it, the more it feels weird. I've always been taught that self-love was something to be feared. I've been taught that arrogance is bad and vanity, it's not good, and even my bracelets are telling me to act how Jesus would, so what should I do?
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraine, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? High Life is a 99% pure CBD oil, made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ayalife.com now. That's AYA life.com.
Millennia. Mankind has been searching for answers to the big questions, such as, where did the universe come from? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? And just what the heck is the Sasquatch all about? I can't promise you answers, and neither can the Woo Crew, but they invite you to join them Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in the UK, for Freaky Friday, exclusively on Truth Frequency Radio. Spirituality, multiverse, quantum mechanics, the occult, and so much conspiracy analysis that it will make your mind melt. Take my word for it. Freaky Friday. It's more than a show. It's a way of life. I am Stephen Hawking, and I am proud to be a Wookiee.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR, your protection from deception.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
I like this add to the song too, Lavender. I like it a lot. And thanks so much for the kind comments in the chat room. I appreciate that very much. The question came up in the chat room about the fake alien invasion, because, you know, we've been talking about the space that has to be filled with something. They got to have something. It was COVID-19, and then monkeypox is disappointing. It's not spreading enough. We can't get enough actors out there with it. It's just not happening. And, you know, the Chinese are worried because at this Bilderberg, where all these high-level decisions are being made by these high-level people that can move money around and approve loans, and you know what I'm talking about. The chessboard doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, and China is not the way it was 10 years ago. Okay? All the factories that, you know, I took apart back in the early 2000s and mid-2000s and moved to China, that's not happening anymore. People are not moving their manufacturing to China now. And a lot of the manufacturing is beginning to move back to the United States, even though it costs more. For a lot of reasons, not just security. You know, I am doing work right now for one of the Fortune 100. And I usually do. I've been working for the Fortune 500 for, I don't know, a long time, since 2001. And now I'm in the Fortune 100, and you know, my skill set is highly sought after. I turned 67 years old last month. Yeah, and I'm working more hours. I'm working about 72 hours a week now. I'm working more hours now than I was, you know, when I was 50. My skill set is just in that high of demand. And I'm working, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm making good money, but, you know, forget about retirement. It's just too much demand right now with the labor force in the shape that it's in. And a lot of these companies are trying to move what has been traditionally made in China for the last decade and a half at a pretty good discount. The supply chain has been interrupted. At the facility that I'm working right now, we're missing at least 1 and sometimes 2 days a week. Not a month, a week. Labor is sent home. You know why? No parts. We have no parts. We don't have the supply in the building. And these are the items that are being made offshore. Not good. It isn't good. And they're small, little things, pieces of rubber and plastic, and you know what I'm talking about. Same thing in the restaurant business, blah, 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 blah. Any business you want to go to. What's the problem? Well, you're going to have to spend 4 cents more to get that made in Georgia or get that made in Indiana and get it shipped to you. And it's going to cost a little bit more money. But what choice do you have? You're 40, 50, 60,000 behind in delivery because you can't get parts. Where's the sense in that? So, of course, what I'm doing is assisting the labor force with robotics. That's what I do, is advanced manufacturing engineering, which is a multidisciplinary space that requires electrical, chemical, mechanical, and even manufacturing engineering experience, plus advanced statistics. And you got to, by electrical, I mean writing programs, putting circuits together, wiring. Mechanical, I mean figuring out force and what cylinders to use and how to machine aluminum and steel and make a piece of equipment out of a drawing. Draw it from scratch and then build it. There aren't many people that can do that. So why do I bring this up? Because the chessboard does not look good for China right now. And if there is a geopolitical conflict, which could go beyond geopolitical, but I'm just using what their language. If there's a geopolitical conflict between the U.S. and China, and believe me, everybody sees it, then China's overseas assets are going to be seriously threatened. That means all the land they own in British Columbia, in Canada, all the land and businesses that they own, that they invested in the United States, it's all going to be threatened, especially their reserves. So the composition of China's external financial assets and their liabilities, mix those together, that's actually what makes your worth. It urgently needs to be adjusted, and the portion of the U.S. dollar-dominated assets in the reserves portfolio should be reduced. That's a fancy way of saying that China's getting in a position where they're going to have to sell all of the U.S. debt. They would do it to hurt us, but it would hurt them too. Okay, because those U.S. debt instruments are worth money, and we have been paying the interest on them. That's how you make your money. Is sort of like having a $10,000 credit card with $9,000 worth of debt on it. Yeah, it's a lot. It's risky, but the debtor's making his interest payments. Let me tell you, the credit card companies love that. They love that 29% interest. Yeah, they love that. Every single month you send in that minimum payment, hell yeah. That's business, baby. And that's exactly what China's been doing. We have made the interest payments on the debt, but we're not paying the debt. So the problem is that China has this asset called a T-bill, or a mortgage, for you people that know what I'm talking about. They could sell that to somebody else. They could sell it to the Fed, which is kind of ridiculous that the money was borrowed from the Fed in the first place, and then they're going to own. I don't understand how they do that. But it could be owned by other people. It could be owned by other countries. It could be owned by Saudi Arabia. It could be owned by Israel. It could be owned by other countries that have the money to buy that debt. And, of course, if China gets in a position where they're trying to sell $1 trillion or so of this debt, guess what the price does? It goes in the shitter. the price goes down. It's a fire sale. People come in and buying USD bills for 70 cents on the dollar. That's how you increase your yield in a low-interest world. Sorry, that's how it's done. That's how I buy my mortgages. Buy mortgages, they're low interest, 4, 5, 6%, but you buy them at a discount. It increases your yield to 11, 12%. That's a pretty good return. Got to sit there and take the payments and kind of hope they sell the property and pay it off because it increases your yield even more, but it is what it is. China is in that position. So a serious debate is raging right now. And you don't hear it because the fake stream news doesn't talk about it. But it's virtually every sector you can think of. It's manufacturing, it's medical, it's fuel, it's power. Every sector of the Chinese society on the American weaponization of this world financial casino. I told you the price of oil is a weapon. And when oil gets very expensive, and right now it's very expensive, we have set 18 records in 19 days. How about that? 18 price records of gasoline in 19 days. I don't even want to, I can't even say it without saying a bunch of profanity, so I'm not going to say it. It's crazy. It's unnecessary. Totally freaking unnecessary. All they would have to do is open up the federal reserves of oil. I don't mean the reserves of oil. I mean the federal lands, because the federal government has seized the land that has the oil on it. You understand? It's not like magically, only federal land has oil on it. We want to drill on it. Get a clue, people. Those lands were seized because they have the oil. The federal government took the land and made it federal lands because it has the oil. And that's how they control it. President Donald Trump opened that up. He allowed the oil companies to pump oil from the federal lands. In 6 months, our energy woes were over. We were now net oil exporters. We were exporting. We had more refining ability than other countries, and we were actually exporting LPG, liquid propane, and we were exporting refined gasoline and other chemicals and diesel fuel. Yeah, we could have supplied Europe with the oil that they don't want to buy from Russia. You see how much incredible sense this makes? But it's exactly why Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are against you. They're against you, so they shut off the oil and force the price of gasoline. 19 records in 18 days. 18 records in 19 days. This is the financial casino, and it's not just hurting us. It's also hurting China. Because they don't have oil reserves either. They got to buy it. And when we jack the price up the way we have, it affects them too. The conclusions are absolutely irrefutable here. You get rid of U.S. treasuries, and you get rid of them quick. That's a fire sale. That will hurt everybody. It'll hurt your 401k more than you know. And they're going to sell them. I'm just telling you, if you have a 401k, and it's got a sizable chunk in there, you have $100,000 or $200,000 in your 401k, and you're pushing over 50, you should seriously consider cashing out that 401k. Yeah, you're going to pay a 10% hit. But let me tell you something, Earth Explorers. That 10% is going to be nothing compared to the hit it's going to take. Use the money wisely. Pay off your house. Pay off your student loans. Do something wise with it. You're not going to invest it in anything unless you want to buy silver, which I think would be stupid because you're taking something liquid and making it not liquid. You could take 25% of it and put it in silver. That would be pretty smart. At least you'd have it for a rainy day. But the best thing to do is get yourself out of debt, which is giving yourself a raise. Yeah, You take that $400, $500, $600, $1,200 a month payment and you eliminate it, you just gave yourself a raise. Now you have more disposable income. Forget about what the credit bureau is telling you about having the right amount of debt. No amount of debt is right. Pay all that shit off. And don't listen to those guys that are saying, oh, leverage your properties and you'll make more money in the long run by, using debt as an instrument. You are setting yourself up to be wiped out, just like they were wiped out in 1928. Don't do it. Meanwhile, this Bilderberg, quote, diverse group, of the other side of the pond is discussing, among other things, what will really happen in case they force the International Monetary Fund racket to blow up, which is what they're calling the Great Reset. This wonderful narrative where you'll never own a home, but you'll be happy. Yeah. They're starting to literally freak out with the slowly but sure emergence of an alternative resource-based monetary financial system, exactly what the Eurasia Economic Union, the EAEU, is currently discussing and designing with Chinese input. Imagine a counter Bilderberg system where a basket, we call it an SDR, a strategic drawing rights bond, okay, SDR. We've been playing with them since the late 70s, but never really been able to turn it into an actual currency because it doesn't really have any value. It's not backed by anything other than the various currencies that sit in the basket. But, now we're talking about a basket of global South actors, okay? Resource rich, but economically poor. They got lots of gold, but it's in the ground. They got lots of steel, but it's in the mine. They got lots of lumber, but it's in the woods. You understand? Resource rich, economically poor. This is prime pickings, just like Ukraine, just like Crimea. Prime pickings for people that want to loan money. That's why Yanukovych got duped the way that he did. You remember Viktor Yanukovych? You remember? The former president of Ukraine, who signed the loan deal with Putin instead of with the transatlantic bank. Yeah, he avoided the debt trap. And that's why they wanted to kill him. That's why they ran him out of the country. But Davos and the Bilderberg messenger boys, when they look at the grand chessboard here that I've just laid out for you, they're filled with dread. Their era of perpetual free lunch, I'm afraid, is over. Now there's blood on all the silverware. What would delight the cynics, the skeptics, the Neoplatonists, and the Taoists galore is that it was Davos Bilderberg, men and women, of course, who actually boxed themselves in. And I'm afraid that's exactly what's happened. All dressed up and nowhere to go. Even J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon, who didn't even bother to go to Bilderberg this year, he's scared too. He's been in the press saying an economic hurricane is coming and overturning the chessboard is no remedy. At best, that may invite a ceremonious tuxedo visit by Mr. Sarmat and Mr. Zircon carrying some hypersonic champagne. So, what is the plan? Well, the most powerful force in the world, and it is the most feared force in human history. Would you like to know what that is? Yes, that's right. Very good. It's you. It's the armed American. You are the most feared and most powerful force in human history. You have the biggest army. You have the most intelligence. You have a decentralized leadership, which is exactly how you win these kinds of things. And the only thing that really the other side can do, the global syndicate can do, is to do what? Yes, to disarm you. Yeah. Virtual Joe called for a number of new measures this week to limit Second Amendment rights. But two of them stood out as starkly, unconstitutional. And for the first time in my lifetime, I've actually heard government officials saying, this Constitution sucks. We need to get rid of it. We need to write another Constitution. Well, we're not talking about a convention of states. That would actually make sense, where thoughtful amendments could be made to kind of plug some of these wounds that we're suffering from, right? Stop the bleeding. No. Let's rewrite the Constitution. This thing is terrible. Yeah, both are egregious in their violations of the Bill of Rights, but this one thing, this is the key that's shaped like a Bowie knife. It's called red flag laws. Red flag laws. How, Brooks, does this work out? How do you make a key out of a Bowie knife? Well, we got to examine the situation within the context of Virtual Joe's domestic terrorism policies. And here's how it works. Okay? Oh, they're rubbing their hands together on this. But the fact that whoever's president is writing this on the teleprompter and Virtual Joe is reading it should scare the hell out of you. Because normally this is behind the smoke. Red flag laws. You know what they are, right? They're extreme protection orders. That's what they are. They're generally associated with assumptions of you are going to cause harm to yourself or to someone else, and you're not stable. The parameters of these laws, they tend to be very broad, like just a broad brush. It could fit into anything. Somebody in a bad mood, somebody with a hangnail, somebody with a flat tire, somebody with road rage. Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, Well, it is, but it isn't. It is maybe, according to, maybe by this. And they allow for almost anyone in regular proximity to a person to accuse them. That guy's dangerous. That guy's a Republican. You need to take his weapons away from him. He's a Trump supporter. Look at that. He's got a F. Joe Biden hat. Take his weapons. You see, anybody in close proximity can raise this red flag and start waving it around. And the accusation can come, from anywhere. It can even come from a family member. It can come from a significant other, somebody maybe you're shagging, right? Or a work associate. Maybe you shared something with somebody at work or on your podcast. Once the accusation's made, then the authorities can confiscate the target person's firearms. And here's the kicker. No due process. Yeah. Under the law, on the grounds that they present a danger to themselves and others. There ain't no jury. There ain't no testing. There's no guideline. There's no standard. There's no proof. Nothing is required. You don't need a court order. And then it's up to the accused to prove that they're not unstable. How do you do that? You're mad. No, I'm not mad. Well, yes, you are. I'm not raising my voice. You are raising your voice. You see what I'm saying? You now have to prove you're not unstable. That's a double negative. It's virtually impossible. Now, yes, the process could take years if the guns are ever returned at all. And some versions of red flag bills even allow police to declare you dangerous on their own accord. They don't need anything. They just need maybe loud exhaust, or they need tinted windows, or they need, somebody that looks at them wrong. You looked at me wrong. I'm taking your weapons. It's sort of a pre-crime system. No, you've never broken law, but you wanted to. And why should this be dangerous to the conservative in particular? Well, like I've said to you before, if they ever get a chance to put this digital currency in place, they could say, we don't like the way you voted. We're going to make sure you can't spend your money. No, you're not allowed to take that vacation. I'm sorry, your card has been declined. You cannot fuel your truck up until you remove that tweet that you posted this morning. You remove that, we'll let you fuel up your car. You voted wrong. You own a weapon. You have a red hat. That's enough for us. Virtual Joe has made it abundantly clear that he intends to confiscate conservatives' weapons with extremism. His policies on domestic terrorism, Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals insinuate that the majority of terrorist concerns come from right-leaning Americans. Now that's a bald-faced lie. You know it and I know it. No conservatives have ever shot anybody. No NRA member has ever committed a crime with a weapon. Doesn't happen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The White House is not able to produce any evidence of right-leaning people committing terrorist acts other than the people that were entrapped in the January 6th celebration in Washington, D.C. as an insurrection, right? And the White House blatantly ignores terrorist acts by people associated with political left, right? Makes no mention of the Summer of Love in which the BLM and Antifa attempted to burn the country to the ground. No mention of the cops that are killed. No mention of innocent people shot in the head in the middle of the street. Nobody arrested. And with all leftist propaganda, a Virtual Joe has sought to associate normal political and social concerns, as well as constitutional concerns, with nefarious behaviors such as racism and treason. If you oppose illegal immigration, for instance, you want, say, voter ID, or you support gun rights or constitutional rights to, a militia, you believe in the government is corrupt and has overstepped its constitutional mandate, you oppose globalism and corporate monopoly, you are an extremist in the eyes of Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. Sorry, that's the truth. And not only that, you are comparable to groups like the KKK and individual terrorists like the Oklahoma City bomber. No, I'm not. The message is clear. Domestic terrorist concerns will revolve around conservatives and patriots. More money is being spent by the FBI to find you than is being spent to stop human trafficking. That's why I called for the dissolution of the FBI. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More. Third hour coming up.
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody,
a song lasts forever.
Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio? Just download the app to your smart car, smartphone, or smart TV and get the best of TFR wherever you are.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
I'm looking at the crowd here and the tens of thousands, probably 100,000 plus people here. And you did it all without burning down buildings? Without looting? I didn't know that that was possible. No shit. According to the media,
these explosions are bullshit.
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 When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit.
Boom. Who could have seen that coming?
Boom. Boom. These explosions are bullshit.
No shit.
Let's have a trial by combat.
This fight has only just begun.
Keep fighting.
Let justice be done.
We're gonna walk down and I'll be there with So place that people don't even believe it can't be true.
That's why my father sends a tweet. Patriots descend on Washington, D.C.
Amen. And a woman. No shit. According to the media.
These explosions are bullshit.
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 When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom. These explosions are bullshit.
No shit.
Let's have trial by combat. We're gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital to save our democracy. And Mike is just gonna have to come through for us. If he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country.
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence.
I had no idea. Who could have seen that coming?
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
So let every adversary against democracy, against liberty, be overturned right now.
So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
No shit.
Boom.
According to the media.
These explosions are bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed.
Here we go, hour 3. Hang with me.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Yes, I saw that comment on DLive by my account. Says dark journalist and Dr. Farrell. And if you haven't seen that interview, you should probably go watch it. It's pretty good. A lot of good stuff in there. It's a little bit dry in the middle, but it's got a lot of good information toward the end. Dark journalist and Dr. Farrell are calling the fake alien invasion Osama bin Alien. Osama bin Alien. So. Anyway, let me get back to this, and we'll talk about that a little bit. These gun control laws, these red flag laws, you know what they do. Everybody is talking about it. All the Freedom Caucus is talking about it. If we can last, if we can make it to November, and we can secure this vote, and by that I don't mean, winning by any means. I mean, if we can destroy these Zucker boxes so that there's no avenue for these ballots to easily get in the system. They're still going to get in the system, and they're going to get in the system by the millions. But they're not going to make it easy, and they're going to be caught a lot more easily because the Zucker boxes won't be there if we have our way. If we win, we can stop this. We can stop this. But here's the deal. These open the door for political punishment. Everybody sees it coming. Everybody sees it. If you disagree with me, you're an extremist. I swear to God, that's a red flag law right there. Virtual Joe's policies specifically in writing mention people who are hostile to government authority. I'm sorry. Americans are hostile to government authority. That's what makes us Americans. Okay? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, that is what we do. Thomas Paine. We are hostile to our government. That's the whole point of it. Okay? And it all falls right in line with all the rhetoric used by the DHS and other alphabet agencies over the past years relating to something called, and you'll hear this more and more as the weeks go on, oppositional defiant disorder. ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. Just write it on your refrigerator because you're going to hear it more and more. Here's the point. When the gun laws were initiated by the Third Reich in Germany in 1938, oh, you think they disarmed Germany before that? They didn't. Germany was well armed. They were like Switzerland. They were armed mothers, let me tell you. After World War I, everybody had a gun. I had a gun in my possession made in World War I. I had a Mauser made in Spandau, Germany in 1890. Yeah, it was a good gun. Shot modern ammunition. These guns were all confiscated from political enemies, and of course the Jews, while gun rights were granted to loyal party members. And this standard, it was done very quickly, nationwide. It helped to strengthen the Nazi Party through a system of rights as rewards. Rights as rewards. You're seeing that happen right now with the Select Committee arresting and incriminating these people for the celebration on January 6th. You're seeing this. If you said the correct things and you virtue signaled your love of the state, you got to keep your firearms. If you spoke out of line, if you had, God forbid, a Q on your mailbox, or you had a Punisher hat in your truck, your freedoms were immediately forfeited. And this includes your access to firearms. And where do you think they're going to be going? Where do you think they're going to be surveilling? No, they're not going to be at the soccer game or the mall. They're going to be at the gun range. They're going to be at the gun show. They're going to be at the Trump rally. That's where they're going to get your picture. Were you or were you not on July 17th at this Trump rally in Oklahoma City? Well, yes, I was. Well, then we need to collect your firearms. Were you or were you not at this gun range firing your weapon? Well, yes, I was. Well, then we need to collect your firearm. You see what I'm saying? They're going to have the evidence. And the evidence is that you were an American. The evidence is that you opposed the government policy. You voted against a referendum. You made a speech at a school board meeting. Red flag laws create an environment where political opposition to the prevailing order can be legally punished as a psychological instability. I'm psychologically unstable right now, just the way I'm talking, aren't I? Under Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, they're going to feel emboldened to take advantage of the open-ended nature of these red flag laws to threaten individual conservatives and patriots, and they're going to take your weapons. Now, this attack, and I'm going to call it an attack, should be taken very seriously by all gun rights advocates and anyone outside of the far left, but leftists are not the biggest danger here. It's perhaps not surprising that some members of the GOP have expressed support for the red flag laws. I'm going to make a note, a list of all the GOP members that come out and make speeches supporting these red flag laws this week. And I will present it to you next week. You're going to know who to vote out of office. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your gun rights. Any Republican that throws their weight behind red flag laws should be treated as hostile to the Constitution, hostile to the Second Amendment in particular. Red flag laws are not a compromise. They are the holy grail of gun control. They are the ultimate Trojan horse. They are the means to deprive anyone of their firearms for any fabricated reason by any person. And they will create an automatic culture of self-censorship. Because you know what will happen. We will all disappear. We'll go underground. We'll go underground. We'll never wear our weapon. We'll never go to the gun range. We'll stop going to Trump rallies. We'll throw our Make America Great Again hats away. We'll go into hiding. We'll still be here. And we'll still be ready to defend our house. But as far as defending the homeland against a tyrannical government, forget about it. Anti-gun authoritarians are fearful, and they better be, of a direct confrontation and direct confiscation. Going door to door is not going to work, and it is not their idea of a good time. Instead, they prefer to use this backdoor confiscation, going after a handful of people and then moving on to the next group and the next and the next. Like I said, I've told you this before on this program. On your street, go ahead, take a minute, look out the window, look down your street. You see the houses there? You see the apartments there? You see them? What would you do if down at the end of the block, 3 squad cars pulled up in the driveway, in the yard, lights flashing, and they went in the house and they took Frank's guns? You'd look out your window. You'd say, oh my God, what's happening down at Frank's house? Look at Frank. He's face down in the yard. What did Frank do? What's Frank done wrong? And they'd be taking Frank's guns. You going to poke your head out the window and say, hey, what are you doing to Frank? No, you're not doing that. You might part the blinds. You might. But then they go to the next house. Susie. What's Susie done wrong? Susie's face down in the yard. They're taking Susie's guns. By the time they get to the 4th or 5th house, somebody might step out in the yard. Hey, what are you guys doing down there? Leave those people alone. You know what the cops are going to say? You get back in your house unless you want to be arrested. And you turn that phone off right now, or you're going to be locked up. They're going to take the whole street. 6 cops. And they don't even have to be armed. 6 cops could take all the guns on all the streets. Anybody that resists, zip-tied and hauled down to jail. It would be easy. And if there is resistance, if Fred steps out and says, hey, I know Frank, he's done nothing wrong, you let him go, or else. And the cop says, or else what? And he brandishes a weapon. Well, Fred's dead. Fred's dead. He brandished a weapon. Maybe Fred gets off a few rounds, and maybe somebody else comes out. Maybe 5 people come out, and they roust those cops. Maybe worse. Then what happens? Well, then the SWAT team shows up. And if that isn't successful, the mech unit shows up. And there isn't a neighborhood in the United States that can take on a mech unit. That's where it will go. Helicopters, jeeps, tanks, armored vehicles, that's where it will go. You can't win. The only thing that wins is the prospect. The prospect of what I just described to you, that's what they dread. They don't want the open confrontation because they know they will lose. 150 million armed people with 500 million weapons and 2 billion rounds of ammunition. You're not taking that over unless you drop a bomb from the sky. This is how they do it. When a black woman was shot Sunday, police officers in Kansas City, Missouri, leftists immediately jumped on it. She was pregnant, and she was unarmed, and she had her hands up, and the police shot her dead. That's what I heard. That was the news. And people were mad immediately. Immediately. They called the Kansas City Defender, describes itself as a fearless, radical black media, posted an article with the headline, Kansas City Police Department shoots unarmed black woman who's pregnant 5 times. The woman had her hands up. There's just one trouble. Cops had a body cam. Yep. And what did it show? 26-year-old Leona Hale was shot by police, apprehended her and another man, by the way, she lived, in connection with a suspected stolen vehicle. Turns out she was not pregnant, and turns out, right there on the body cam, that she was armed with a pistol, and she brandished it and aimed it at police. There it was, on film. Well, that's what happens. False narratives about what happened last Friday night at 6th and Prospect Avenue, unfortunately, were relied upon by some media and other sources. Our job as prosecutors is to remain neutral and review all the evidence. Our review of body cam videos provided the actual accounting of the events that night. Our review of the investigation revealed the defendant, although she denied having a weapon at the time of the encounter with law enforcement officers, continually displayed a weapon during her encounter with police officers and also appeared to be attempting to flee. And she was not pregnant. Yeah, the two officers stated that she was armed with what they believed to be a handgun. Sure looked like one to me when I saw the cam. Body camera footage confirms the officer's statements that Hale was holding a handgun. Still photos from the body cam footage show it clearly, and still they would not give up the narrative. The leftists did not wait for the facts of the case to come out before making a judgment on it. Women's March co-founder Linda Sourass, you remember her, don't you? Linda Sourass, the one with the very expensive head bandanas that she wears to look like a Muslim that she's not. And the Frontline Communications Director Leslie Mack were among the verified Twitter users who spread the apparent lie that Hale was unarmed. Cops can apprehend white mass murderers without a scratch, but will shoot unarmed black people that pose no threat to them. That was their tweet. Pure lies, pure lies. Jackson County Prosecutor's Office said that Leona Hale had a firearm and she was going to use it, and so they shot her 5 times. She lived. Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are overzealously targeting firearm retailers to drive them out of business. Federal firearm license revocations for retailers have increased 500 from previous years. 500. That's got gun control groups excited, but it is casting a pall over cooperative relationship firearms retailers that they maintain with law enforcement. They're driving a wedge between the retailers and law enforcement, which is a bad thing because, you know, when you go to get a concealed carry, you usually take the class at the local firearms dealer, right? The firing range has a class. You take the class, you pass the class, you fill out, they send the form, you get the form, you take it to the sheriff's office. A couple months later, the sheriff or a deputy brings you in one-on-one, sits you down across from a table from them. They ask you several questions, and they look you straight in the eye. And by their judgment, these sheriffs and deputies' judgment, they determine, should this person have a weapon or not? And if you are the best of the best, that is to say, you have no record of violence, you've never had a DUI, you've never committed a crime, you are current on your payments and you have good credit, and they determine you to be a fine, upstanding citizen. They look you in the eye, and you're not going to get a gun because of crazy criminals out there because the government may come and take it. They always ask you those questions. And they look for the answers. They're really good at telling when people are lying. You can pass all that. They sign it, and you get your permit. And the permit allows you to buy an unlimited number of handguns. You can get a permit to buy 5 handguns in the state of North Carolina without a concealed carry. It just means that when you have the weapon, you have to show the weapon. And I wouldn't be driving around with a weapon in your car if you don't have a concealed carry license. You're going to get in trouble. It's called possession of a weapon with the intention of going armed. It can be a felony depending on where you are and what you're doing at the time. be careful. Just know the laws. But these concealed carry people, and you in the chat room, some of you have them, you are de facto deputies. Now, it doesn't mean you can go arrest somebody. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if the sheriff gets in a situation where the number of deputies he has is not enough to ensure the safety of the people that he's been elected to ensure the safety of, he can call you. He can call you. That's his database. He's going to call the concealed carry people. Hey, we have a problem. I need to deputize 200 people, and I need to do it right now. Can you come down to the sheriff's office and bring your weapon? Can you show up to this location and bring your weapon? You know why he does that? Because you're trained. You know what the law is, and you're there to assist. And I bet you in this county anyway, if a lot of people were called, a lot of people would show up. Not many people would say, no, I didn't really buy into that. I think I'm going to stay here and watch Netflix. No, a lot of me and a lot of my friends, we would strap on our weapon and we would go. Virtual Joe deceived us this week. He lied to us. He said that he intended to use the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. We used to call them BATF, but now they're called the BATFE. And why is it tobacco? I know you always ask me that question. Because of the taxes, okay? You could buy cigarettes in, Chicago, let's say, and then you could drive to Florida with a trunk full of cigarettes, and you could sell the cigarettes and make enough money, because of the taxes in Florida, you could make enough money on the cigarettes to pay for your vacation. Well, that's interstate transportation of cigarettes for the purpose of resale. That is a federal crime. And that was what the mafia was doing. Okay, they were bootlegging cigarettes, and they were bootlegging alcohol. So alcohol and tobacco was added to this bureau, the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco. And because most of these people had firearms, they added firearms. So now it's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And they're an army of shotgun-toting mercenaries who make sure that bootlegging of alcohol or tobacco or the misuse of firearms doesn't take place. And then they recently added explosives to that. Anyway, Virtual Joe said he was going to use them to drive his gun agenda. And he campaigned on a platform targeting the firearm industry instead of focusing on the criminals. Let's focus on the people who are selling the guns, like the NRA. Let's focus on them. Why? Because they support Republicans, and Democrats are not Republicans, and they don't want Republicans to have campaign money, so they target the NRA. Here's what he said. This is what Virtual Joe said during his campaign. He said, our enemy is the gun manufacturers, not the NRA. The gun manufacturers. You believe that? That sick bastard? That's what he said. Virtual Joe is pummeling firearm retailers. Colt, Beretta, Taurus, these people that make these firearms, Sig Sauer, Winchester, or Smith & Wesson. So instead of compliance inspections by the ATF, Industry Operations Investigators, to work to ensure firearm retailers remain within federal firearms regulations, those inspections are now driving firearm retailers out of business. And what are they doing? They're catching little typographical errors. You have a typo in your ad, we're shutting you down. You're saying you're a firearms place, but you're selling a clothing. We're shutting you down. You see, it's sort of like going when you have the ABC. ABC is the government liquor retailers, right? In the state of North Carolina, they're all run by the government. Even though they're private, they have very strict rules. I went one time, buying liquor. They don't sell wine. They don't sell beer. And guess what else they don't sell? Ice. You can't get ice at a liquor store. See, all these things are verboten. The only thing you can sell is the liquor. And, of course, the state is the one that makes the money on it, right? And they're all, believe me, they're making money. Believe me, they're making money. But you buy your wine and your beer at the grocery, and you buy your ice at the convenience store or the grocery. Yeah, but firearms dealers are the same way. You can buy ammunition there to use at the range that's made with a square bullet called a wad cutter. It's a basically for punching paper. You don't want to use a hollow points or full metal jacket rounds to shoot paper. It's a waste of money. So you can buy 9mm or 380 or different calibers at the gun range and shoot up their brass, and then they can reload it. You can also, now you can't buy high capacity magazines for certain weapons because they're illegal. You have to buy them somewhere else, like Shotgun News or a gun show or something like that. Lee Williams, who's an independent investigative reporter specializing in covering firearms, he revealed that the ATF once revoked the licenses of federal arms licensees. These are called FFLs. That's the only place you can legally buy a weapon in the state of North Carolina. Even if you buy it from an individual, you have to go to an FFL and take care of the transfer. Otherwise, the serial number of that weapon is with the previous owner, the original owner. So if a crime is committed with this gun or you use it in an improper way, it's the previous owner is liability. So if you buy a weapon from somebody, they're going to take you down to the local FFL, their buddy, and they're going to work the yellow paper. The yellow paper is basically the transfer of the serial number of that weapon from one person to another person. I don't buy new weapons typically. I will buy weapons from somebody else in another state through a broker. They will send the weapon to my local FFL. And then I will go there and pay the $35 and file the yellow papers and put that serial number in my name, thus exonerating the previous owner. But in the 11 months since Virtual Joe declared war on gun dealers, the ATF, in 11 months, has revoked 273 federal firearms licenses. That's an increase of 500%. Rather than targeting the true rogues, Virtual Joe is revoking FFLs of the most minor paperwork errors. We'll be right back after this final segment coming up. Don't go away.
Fourth major lesson in life to learn. Learn how to reap in the fall without complaint. Learn to reap come harvest time without complaint. Take full responsibility for what happens to you. It's one of the highest forms of human maturity, accepting full responsibility. It's the day you know you've passed from childhood to adulthood, the day you accept full responsibility. And another note, learn to reap in the fall without apology. Without apology if you do well, and without complaint if you don't. That's maturity.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
We exist in the security and comfort of our worlds. Paved paths, lights, and manicured lawns give us peace of mind that our world has been tamed, and we are its master. But other worlds exist on the edge of our sight. On the edge of our awareness, the shadows move. The woods is filled with the unblinking eyes of the nightmares our ancestors warned us about. Some of us have stumbled into these forgotten realms, whether on purpose or completely by surprise. I'm Brent Thomas. Join us on the Paranormal Portal Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight Pacific Standard Time as we journey into the world of the paranormal phenomena.
Enter the paranormal if you dare.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right. Wow. This night has gone quick. Lots of variety. So we're talking about gun rights. And of course, people always say, you know, I had a tragic boating accident and all my guns were lost and are now at the bottom of the lake. To that, I have to say, the best advice that I can give you, and this is really, really, really good advice. Never, ever, under any circumstances, talk to police. If you get pulled over, answer questions with yes or no. Provide what the police officer asks for and follow his orders. But do not speak. Don't speak. And if they ask you, if they come to your house and ask you, do you own this weapon? Don't lie. That's the best advice I can give you. Don't lie. The answer is yes, I own the weapon. Do you have the weapon on you at the moment? No. Where is the weapon? I don't know. Just be as vague as you can. I'm just telling you. You're going to know what their intention is right off. But everything you say, and then some, is going to be used against you in a court of law. And you should say that to the policeman, too. You should say, everything you say is going to be used against you in a court of law. Make him aware of that. Everything you say is going to be used against you in a court of law. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some space stuff. Because tomorrow, it's a really cool, because if you have my book, Asteroid Mining, The Future of Energy, well, it may not, because it's in color and it's expensive. It's $30 to buy this book from Amazon. And I have a few copies here. I would sign them and send to you, but they're not cheap. It's more of a coffee table book, but it's very good, and it will tell you where we are with our current and just a little bit in the future space technology. But tomorrow, midnight on Monday, tomorrow, June 6th, for those of you that are listening to this as an archive, the technicians at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, that's why I'm making my Make Space Great Again hat right tonight. They're scheduled to begin transporting the agency's huge Artemis 1 moon rocket to its launch pad for a crucial countdown rehearsal. Now, if you don't know what Artemis 1 is, you can look it up or you can buy the book. I have wonderful color photographs of it, and it's a space system, okay? It's designed to develop cislunar space. This is the space between Earth and surrounding the moon. It'll eventually encompass habitats and GPS systems so we can navigate on and around the moon, and it's going to set up maybe helium-3 mining operations on the moon, and it's going to be designed to set up a good deep space stepping stone or launch point for developing the CISMARS space. So this is a big deal, big with a capital B. It is the first launch. They said we would never get here, actually, but we did. The first launch for NASA's new Space Launch System mega rocket. First, this is the Orion capsule. It's the first launch of it, uncrewed, of course. It's going to be launched. It's going to be loaded with instruments to measure its ability to block the radiation in the Van Allen radiation belts, because eventually we're going to put people in that Orion and send them to the moon. And it's going to happen. This is going to go out to the moon, around the moon a couple of times, and then back. That's the mission. It's going to lift off probably in August if we don't have some crazy panicdemic or other catastrophe. But the Space Launch System and the Orion capsule, which is much bigger than the Apollo. You could put 2 Apollos inside this. It's still shaped the same, but it has a lot more features, a lot more protection. They're going to complete a series of fueling and simulated launch countdown tests. This is known as the wet dress rehearsal. You dump all the liquid hydrogen peroxide in there, bring it to pressure, make sure nothing leaks, nothing expands or cracks, or all the braces and load cells and everything are within nominal. And the rollout's going to be, as I said, midnight on Monday. And it's 4 miles to get there. And this thing runs really, really slow, so it's going to take a while to get there. 8 to 12 hours to get there. From the KSC Vehicle Assembly Building. This thing is built inside. It's an enormous building, and then the doors open, and this thing moves out on like tank treads, very, very slowly, so as not to jostle anything. And this is going to be the second rollout for Artemis 1. The first one occurred actually a couple months ago in March. It emerged around sunset for an audience of hundreds, backdrop by a full rising moon. It was quite the sight. The timing for this rollout is geared more toward utility than spectacle. An overnight rollout allows for more temperate and more predictable weather during Florida's hot and humid summer months. Artemis 1's first wet dress rehearsal attempt began April 1st. Supposed to wrap up 48 hours later. It was delayed several times. That happens a lot. Different things don't measure up. They don't. And this is all part of the debugging process. We do this all the time when we build equipment. We draw it up. We have it fabricated. We have the parts assembled. We put it all together. We turn the lights on. Something's wrong. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. I just turned a piece of equipment on that I took 3 months building, and the light curtain doesn't stop the operation. It sends the 24 volts just like it's supposed to, but the program is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So this is why we do these wet dress rehearsals. Before we actually launch something, we make sure that every single system works and all of that is validated. And if it doesn't work, we find out why and fix it. If all goes according to plan, the June 19th wet dress rehearsal will last about 48 hours. NASA has published a list of launch windows for Artemis 1, and agency officials have voiced cautious optimism for an August liftoff. That would be so cool. I would love to go down there and watch this launch because it's so big. So big. Let's see. One other thing I want to talk about before getting back to Ukraine, because I want to finish with something on that. The invasion that has been occurring for the last 18 months. This is not good. The policies of Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are resulting in large boosts in foreign-born populations. We call these illegal aliens. Across a number of, and unfortunately, it's swing states. You know, you've been wondering, where are they busing these people? Where are they flying these people? They're flying them to you. They're busing them to your state. Why? I mean, what difference does it make? These people can't vote, right? Analysis from the Center for Immigration Studies. I don't even know where this is or who staffs it. I've never seen anything published by them before. I'm going to certainly begin looking them up and investigating them. I've never heard of a Center for Immigration Studies. But they revealed that foreign-born populations has grown in the United States to a record-breaking, are you ready for this? 47 million. 47 million. With about 2 million illegal and legal immigrants just in the last 15 months. Much of the growth in the nation's foreign-born population is settling in the swing states by design. Virtual Joe is moving these people to North Carolina, to Texas, to Florida, to Kansas. They're not staying in the border states. They're moving them on purpose. Florida, for instance, added 390,000 illegal aliens in the last 15 months. Pennsylvania, obviously not a border state, 375,000 illegal aliens. Michigan, not a border state from the south, they bust 247,000 illegal aliens. Georgia, 152,000. Arizona, 148,000. Tennessee, South Carolina, 130,000 illegal aliens. These are sizable cities of illegal aliens bust into and dropped off. Newly registered foreign-born voters outpace electoral margins. Yes, the figures are vital to electoral politicking because these illegal aliens, guess what they have? Kids. They have kids that are born in the United States. And because of a misinterpretation of our Constitution by the Democrats, not the Republicans, the Democrats, people born in the United States are citizens. Even if they're born to non-citizens, they're automatic citizens. Birthright citizenship, not in the Constitution. In 2019, for example, The Atlantic's Ronald Brownstein found that nearly 90% of House congressional districts, get that number in your head, 90% of House congressional districts with illegal alien populations above the national average, they're won by Democrats. I wonder why. It means every congressional district with a illegal alien population exceeding 15% has a 90% chance of electing Democrats and only a 10% chance of electing a Republican. And it's been that way for a long time. It may be changing because the Democrats have pissed off so many Latinos, but we'll see. The single biggest threat to Republicans' long-term viability is demographics. Look what's happening in Texas right now. Redistricting is virtually making it impossible to keep Texas red. You get that? Texas is red. Oh, absolutely. The majority of Texans are going to vote for Republicans. But the way the state has been redistricted, it's precinct by precinct, you understand? That's how it's done. That's how it's done. The U.S. has, obviously, the most generous immigration system in the world. We're expected to bring in 15 million new voters, foreign-born voters, by the year 2042. 15 million. And they're expected to vote Democrat. That's kind of crazy. And by the way, they arrived entirely due to the process known as chain migration. That is where one alien gets in the country and becomes a naturalized citizen, right? They become a naturalized citizen. They take the oath and they become a naturalized citizen. It might take 10 years for them to do it. But as soon as they do it, they can bring an unlimited number of their foreign relatives to the U.S. It's called chain migration. One person can bring up to 35, 40 people to the country. Yeah. Oh, no, none of them are citizens. And they might not be for the rest of their lives, but that's where it's going. Virtual Joe and his corrupt Department of Justice under Merrick Garland is having unprotected sex with the media. Yep. Yesterday, Tesla CEO brought up the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. We've talked about it here on this program. We want to know why in the hell don't we have the names of the people that went to that island? It's because if those names are released, the global syndicate loses their leverage. They lose the leverage because now they can no longer blackmail those people by controlling that information. But tweeting of the Epstein-Maxwell client list, the only thing more remarkable than DOJ not leaking the list is that no one in the media cares. Nobody gives a crap. And then he added, sometimes I think my list of enemies is too short. So that's his joke. That's his joke. And then when somebody inevitably replied with the infamous picture of Ghislaine Maxwell standing next to Elon, you remember that picture, right? He replied, yes, Maxwell photobombing me at a Vanity Fair Oscars party. You should ask them why they invited her. Adding, by the way, the same people who pushed this photo say nothing about the prominent people who actually went to Epstein's Island a dozen times. Also, very strange. They cannot show the client list or all the Mossad's hard work in compromising powerful people in the USA and Europe will be wasted. Scary part is, these people which were compromised by these events, they're still in power and they're still compromised. Maxwell, Epstein's former madam and lover, was convicted way back in December 29th of 2021. Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it? Hard to believe. Recruiting underage girls for sexual abuse and sale by Epstein and his network of friends. By the way, her sentencing hearing is coming up June 28th. It's about June 5th now, so 23 days we're going to find out what's going to happen to her. Epstein, of course, didn't make it that far. He died of suicide in a Manhattan holding cell, of which security footage was erased due to, well, technical errors, and the guards who were guarding him were distracted with sleeping and ordering crap online. So, Austria, you know the country Austria, right? Well, they're asking the question very legitimately, hey, where's our gold anyway? Did you know that since 2007, The Austrian Central Bank owns a few kilograms short of 280 tons of gold. That's a lot of gold. In a report released by the Austrian Court of Audits from February 2015, it stated Austria was holding too much of its metal, 82% in London, and the Bank of England. Oops. The Court of Audits concluded that all contracts between this bank and its external depository, but mainly the one in England, contained deficiencies and auditing measures were lacking. Soon after, the Austrian Central Bank announced a new storage concept. Are you ready for this? Contracts with external depositories are going to be reviewed. They're going to be amended. 90 tons stored at the Bank of England. It's going to be repatriated. We want it back. Oh, and 50 tons are going to be transferred from London to Switzerland. And within 5 years, that would be last year, 2020, the new storage concept should have been completed. But guess what? In 2018, the bank announced to have repatriated 90 tons from London ahead of schedule. Up to 50% of the bank's gold was brought home, divided between that bank's own vaults, 90 tons, and the vaults in Austria, 50 tons. The transfer of gold from London to Switzerland, however, never happened. Oops, 50 tons never happened. From January 2020 up until January 2022, there was a graph of the bank's website suggesting all metal that was supposed to be located in Switzerland had arrived, though in the fine print it said by 2020 at the latest. The bank will have completed the implementation of the gold storage policy in Switzerland. It is very likely that up until today, right now, June 5th, none of the gold has been transferred from London to Switzerland. Never happened. Somewhere after January 2022, the graph above was taken down off their website. Now their website reads this: the relocation from London to Switzerland has been postponed until organizational and logical obstacles have been resolved. The bank said this: we can confirm that the relocation has been postponed. However, we are not allowed to disclose any details in order to comply with contractual obligations to keep business secrets of external partners involved. For a fact, the bank knew the transfer would be delayed long before 2022. The bank's annual report in 2015, which was 4 years before the transfer was to start, 90 tons would be repatriated from Bank of England. 50 tons would be transferred from UK to Switzerland by 2020. The same deadline was disclosed in the bank's annual report in 2016. Oops, I guess nobody was checking. The original plan was first adapted in the bank's annual report in 2017. Oops, another miss. The deadline was dropped, and it was replaced by new gold storage policy. Meanwhile, 0 gold had arrived in Switzerland. Nothing. Still, 3% was stored in Switzerland, the same as the prior new gold storage concept. Based on the publication dates of the reports, the bank must conclude the shipment towards Switzerland. Should be postponed between May 2017 and May 2018. Repatriating gold from London went as scheduled. Pretty interesting. 50 tons of gold disappeared. Still unaccounted for. They don't know if it's there or not. They don't know. Let's see. I want to wrap up. What time is it? We're about out of time anyway. I was going to talk a little something about Ukraine being a money pit. But it isn't really a money pit. It's more like a change bank, you know, like you got 4 quarters and you want $1 in paper, or you got $1 in paper, you want 4 quarters. You go to the change bank. The only trouble is it ain't your dollar. It ain't your dollar. What happened is the taxpayers gave you $1, and then you take it to the change bank and you give it to them, and they give you 4 quarters. Now you can say, well, these 4 quarters don't belong to the taxpayers. These 4 quarters belong to me and 3 of my friends. Here you go. That's what's going on in Ukraine. The United States has been required to strike a balance between its role in global affairs and its interests at home. But it isn't meeting that. It isn't meeting that. Let's see if I can read this. Although we sympathize with the resistance to Vladimir Putin's invasion, we cannot bankrupt our country by becoming a belligerent in another foreign war. With a national debt exceeding 120% of gross national product, rampant inflation not seen since the 1980s, and significant supply chain disruptions, the United States must first secure its own economy before assisting foreign states. So all that you've heard about $40 billion going to Ukraine, weapons systems being sent to Ukraine. By the way, today there was an explosion in Ukraine, and it was in Kiev, which is kind of surprising. We're going to wait a minute. The Russians aren't bombing Kiev. Yes, they are. They destroyed an American shipment of weapons, pinpointed it, boom, destroyed it, just like that. These weapon systems are never going to arrive in Ukraine. The $40 billion, however, going to fall out of the news. You mark my words. We're going to try to keep track of it. Let you know where it is and what's going on. But about $39.5 billion of that money is going to end up in the dark money system. And it is going to finance some bad stuff. So keep your eyes open. Situational awareness. Don't just drive around in a stupor anymore. I highly recommend, I know it's expensive. I know, believe me, I spent $80 filling up my truck today. Not a happy camper. Keep a full tank. Keep a full tank. Make sure you don't keep too much cash in the bank. Turn some of that cash into silver. Put that silver at your house. Silver's a safe place, and it's cheap right now. Cheaper than it's been in a while. Don't be afraid of it. That's the way to store your money. At least then Virtual Joe can't steal it. Every Wednesday, every Sunday, we are live right here with America Free Radio. I have been your host, Brooks Agnew, saying, peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do. Take care of yourselves.